Hello, I'm Jay Jackson. Welcome to WineNewsNoir.com. Thank you for watching, liking, and subscribing on YouTube. We start with the economy and how it's devastating the wine industry. Winemakers are feeling the pinch around the world, and one expert says it's coming down to the rules of the wild. They were stunning announcements. Rashira Wine's Caribou Lounge closing its doors in Alameda, and Free Range Flower Winery shutting down in Livermore, California, both victims of a wine industry in freefall.
Everybody's feeling the effects of tariffs.
Juanito Pavone II is a wine industry columnist and owner of the Cocovino Wine Shop in Glendora, California. He says the Trump tariffs and steep decline in wine sales around the world has turned the industry into a game of survival of the fittest, and that means a game of negotiations.
Anything's negotiable. I mean, they're going to tell you no, but there's something called the family plan that a lot of distributors offer to consumers. If you buy, 5 cases, then, we'll drop the bottle price from 13 to 9 or 10. And you can even negotiate that even more because, again, the competition is so stiff in the wine industry right now. You can choose to buy a Sauvignon Blanc from someone else. But you at least have to ask, and you at least have to, have a poker face and play your cards right.
Wine industry data shows multiple quarters of overall decline in sales in most major categories, along with tariffs, shifting drinking patterns, climate shift costs, and an industry slow to evolve are to blame. Pavone says adjust now before it's too late.
It's something that doesn't necessarily exist in our culture, but in cultures around the world, in Europe, the Middle East, Asia, a lot of people in business, they wake up trying to negotiate price. That's what they do. And it comes to a shock for Americans when they see people from other countries, or at least that have come here from other countries and are now citizens, wanting to negotiate prices. And most people are like, well, the price is listed there, but they'll still try to negotiate it because sometimes they get their way. And in a climate where, economically speaking for the country, we're struggling, everything's on the table to negotiate.
Pavone adds winemakers who diversify their product lines are more likely to survive the downturn with merchandise and sustainability practices. A fight with who, wild whiskey wranglers, and the latest off-premise sales numbers. Here are the top stories for this October's Wine in a Minute. Wine and spirits makers worldwide are pushing back against health warnings from the World Health Organization. A Reuters report tracked increased spending among wine and spirits makers lobbying the WHO to change guidelines that considered any amount of alcohol consumption unhealthy, and it appears to be working. One proposed WHO guideline that suggested certain cancers are directly linked to alcohol was dropped from next year's final ruling. $1 million whiskey heist has the spirits world on high alert. Some 12,000 bottles of Westland Garryana was loaded in a truck in July and supposedly taken from its Washington distillery headed to New Jersey, but it never made it. In fact, the truck hasn't been seen since. The shipment included rare 10-year-old whiskey that the maker says can't ever be replaced because it was their first run. Whiskey experts say the thieves will have a hard time selling the bottles because the close-knit industry is on notice and the bottles are so rare they'll easily stand out. Off-premise wine sales continue to fall. Domestic table and sparkling wine fell 7.2% compared to last year. Sales also fell 7% by volume. Import sales dropped 5%, and by volume sales dropped 6.2%. Off-premise sales are wine sales that people can buy and take home, such as from wine and liquor stores. And finally, we go to the vineyards, where harvest is in full swing. And what better time to check in on the grapes? It's October, and for most winemakers north of the equator, that means the grapes are picked and fermenting right now. For L'Objet Wines owner Dan Glover, the 2025 vintage is, in a word,
crazy. It's been good. All the fruits coming in. It's been really good. Super happy.
This is the 27th harvest for the Healdsburg master winemaker. He says besides some late rain, Sonoma did right by him this season and his collection of Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Noir, and Red Blend. On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate this harvest and why?
So far, I'd rate it probably about an 8. Yeah, the fruit has been amazing. The nice thing about it was we had a cool summer. So a lot of the grapes were on vine a lot longer than they usually are. Like, for example, my Sauvignon Blanc, usually I pick it in late August. I picked my Sauvignon Blanc early in September. So I had another week, 10 days on the vine than I normally do. So that to me was huge. Same thing, Zinfandel, Pinot, all those just really turned out, a little more time in the vine, a little more flavor development on the vine.
But even with a bountiful harvest, the specter of a shaky market worries every winemaker. Glover says he's not immune to panic in the industry, but that's when 3 decades of experience kicks in.
The market is very tough right now. I think we see a lot of folks that used to buy wine, they're phasing out. We're kind of waiting for a new generation to phase in slowly but surely. But it'll happen and it'll be good and things will turn around. This is my 27th harvest. So, I've seen ups and downs a lot in this business. It's, you got to persevere. It's if you just kind of ride the waves, right now we're in a downward wave, and I think it'll come back. It's just a matter of, you gotta just keep going and persevere, and that's the hard part, because it's real easy to just go, this isn't working, I'm going to try something else. But I don't know, for me, I just really have a passion for this and I really love it and I don't know what else I would do. So I almost don't have a choice but to persevere.
And that's going to do it for this episode of WineNewsNoir.com. Please remember to support our sponsors on our website. Once again, thank you for watching, liking, and subscribing on YouTube. I'm Jay Jackson. Cheers.